Alrighty, welcome everyone. I'm Tiabu, and those of you who know me know that I'm usually an anime guy. I watch a lot of anime, and I react to it on YouTube, and I discuss it in as much depth as I possibly can, and we have a good time with that. Normally, I don't talk about other types of media, but recently I had the opportunity to flex a little bit of my weebiness and watch the 70th year anniversary film Godzilla Minus One, coming out here in 2024, 70 years after the original release of the 1954 smash hit Gojira, which is a wonderful film that I happen to be really familiar with because in my college days, I took a number of courses with this one professor. Probably can credit him for me doing what I do now, because he opened the world of the coolness of media up to me in a really spectacular way. But I found this professor, and he was teaching all these cool media studies, film studies classes, and he taught a class on Japanese horror film, and it went all the way back to like long distant, super black and white adaptations of classical Japanese horror stories, like Grimm's fairy tale style things. I distinctly remember a woman who is a cat demon, and like some weird shit happens, and she ends up being really vindictive. They're cool movies, very classical horror cinema stuff, and was built to demonstrate to us how the Japanese horror industry sort of came to be in such a different way from the American horror industry. They're really dramatically different, and there is a very good reason that Japanese horror films, at least when they first come out with an idea, are so often so much more interesting and creative. I think they just have a wealth of cultural background in horror that just serves way better on a film landscape. All that is kind of beside the point, because at some point during that horror cinema class, we watched and had to write essays on the original Godzilla, because it's a fucking landmark, culture-smashing hit that took the world by real storm in a really wonderful way, and is crucially important as an ideological, thought-provoking movie because of the content that it handles. The whole film is allegorical for nuclear war, and specifically for the use of the bombs on the main islands, and plays in that space a little bit in the post-war horror of Japan wondering at the damage that is being inflicted upon it without knowing how to deal with it, as well as finding 10 years approximately after the end of the war, finding the strength and wherewithal to blame itself in some real ways for the destruction that has been caused. Godzilla doesn't get unleashed on his own. It's our meddling that causes it. It ends up being a really landmark, cornerstone, ideological central movie for Japan. And I think it's a really important film for that reason in particular. Not to mention all the stuff that happens with America later on in the film and all kinds of things. So, when my roommate was like, hey, I picked up a copy of Godzilla Minus One, and I'm going to put it up on the projector. Yes. So I got to watch it on a big screen projector with big speakers and stuff, about as close as you can get to a home theater experience. And I really liked the film. I really liked this 70-year anniversary film for a number of reasons. So I'm just going to go through a couple of those, spout them out at you, and I don't know, have a good time recapping a bit of a movie that I really enjoyed. I'll try to let you know when I'm going to spoil stuff. I will spoil stuff about the film. Sorry. I just have things that I want to talk about. I will do my best to let you know exactly when that's going to happen. But blanket warning, there will be spoilers for the film. So if you want to go in blind, don't watch the rest of this video. Just go see it and take my word for it that it's a cool movie and you should probably see it. So, my big takeaways from the film, and the things that I found striking and interesting about it, I think the most striking and interesting thing about it was the way that they treated the story, and the thematic reversal that happens in Godzilla Minus One, and what that means for the ideology trying to be pushed, or the message trying to be pushed by the film. And it's a message about what it means to be a hero at its fundament. I think this is maybe why I'm inspired to talk about this film in a little bit of depth, because that's a theme that I like to talk about a lot. You can imagine we watch a lot of shonen anime and other anime, and heroes are in every show, and they need their reasons to hero. So I want to talk about that and what it means to be a hero as according to Godzilla Minus One, and how that's different from maybe previous films in the series. But the first and most immediately striking things about the film are in its production. A lot of people are going to talk about the creature effects, and they're dope, and we will mention them in a second, but the thing that strikes me off the bat most is that this film was shot to be released in either black and white or full color, which is really interesting. I had the pleasure of watching the full color version. However, my roommate who showed it to me saw the black and white version in theaters before seeing this version, and so was excited to see what it looked like in full color. I saw it in full color, and there is all throughout a very distinct eye toward light and shadow throughout the film that makes it look extremely striking. The general color grade is really good. It almost has the look of like a post-processing recolored film that was black and white and has been recolored, but of course it's so perfectly crisp that it hasn't been. It's just that they're using digital effects to mimic older film to some extent. But god damn, it looks good. And it looks really good. It looks beyond good. And you can tell that that's because they've lit every scene so that it's got this dramatic black to white contrast throughout the scene. But when you blow that up with full color, it just looks like they spent extra time lighting every scene and making everything look really good. And everything looks really good. I would give this film it looks iconic immediately. It looks ancient and yet perfectly pristine at the same time. I've never seen film work that was meant to emulate old school cinematography that works so damned well and manages to be visually enticing and exciting all the way through while relying on tricks and techniques that are far more old school. To jump off of that, transitions throughout the film are utterly simplistic and old school, as you might expect. I can't think of a moment in the film that isn't either just a simple cut, or, more frequently even, a fade to black, fade in from black. The most boring, lame transition, but the one that's throughout 54 Godzilla, and one that makes the chapters of the movie as it moves along feel like they're passing time. And they are, because there are multiple time skips throughout the film. Short ones, but they do pass time off screen. And those sort of fade out, fade in transitions give that ethereal sort of feeling. I think it worked really well. Just on the production front, on how everything looks and feels, I don't think you can watch this movie without getting sucked into the time and the look of the thing. Because everything in the film looks real and cool, with one exception. Godzilla. Godzilla looks dope. And also fucking ridiculous. Godzilla has gone back away from the big CG real monster to a creature that is simultaneously absolutely terrifying in its capacity and kind of hilarious to watch. Godzilla has that old man in the suit feel, a little bit, just a smidge, just a little too rigid in the way that it moves, and a little too rubbery as it sort of walks down like a big goober. It makes the thing look a little bit silly, and then it blows up your whole city. And that's scarier. It's scarier. I don't know why. I can't explain it. But something about the monster being just a little bit goofy, a little bit silly, and then just as threatening, just as dangerous as any other, it's really cool. It manages to nod at the way that Godzilla has looked for so long, and the way that we've all sort of filtered out of our expectations and understanding of Godzilla. Yeah, I know it's a guy in a rubber suit, but it's actually a 180 tall giant lizard shooting heat beams. It's like, it's a big monster, and so you suspend your disbelief. There's something really interesting about that to me. It's like if they tried to make Godzilla completely realistic, a real giant irradiated dinosaur out on a rampage, like they did in Shin Godzilla, you're going to be watching the CG to see if it looks even a little bit funky. It's got to look perfect in order to be that, to nail that feel. And what Godzilla Minus One demonstrates is that It doesn't. It can be the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and if it's walking by and smashing cities, it can be the most horrifying thing you've ever seen. And Godzilla in this film is horrifying. The film also manages to do some really classic horror cinema stuff. Godzilla does level up over the course of the movie, not as much as something like Shin Godzilla that's evolving all the way through, but does level up over the course of the movie. And a lot of those moments are hidden with the beast staying underwater and us just seeing its spinal fins, kind of Jaws style. The tricks and general horror cinematography are really smooth, really expert in their execution, and I'm a sucker for things that are just done well with an obvious knowledge and care for the past and the things that they're adapting or creating a new version of. This movie feels entirely like an homage, and yet it sits immediately alongside the greats of the Godzilla franchise. It's simultaneously a love letter to them and manages to take its place alongside them, and I think that's freaking awesome. But beyond all the production, beyond the honestly stellar acting throughout the film, creature effects, special effects, giant boats and buildings, and incredible scenes of destruction and chaos and horror, something really stood out to me about the story beats of Godzilla Minus One. Here we're getting into real hard spoiler territory. I am going to spoil the entire plot of the film as regards to the main character, so watch out, spoilers incoming. Our main character is a coward. He is a kamikaze pilot. Kamikaze pilots are not meant to survive. They are meant to fly their plane directly into an enemy boat or other encampment and explode it, plane full of bombs, and die heroically for their nation. That is the expectation placed upon them, and it is their duty beyond duty, with all of the weight that has in the kind of stereotypical Japanese-y, Bushido-y, Cody style thing, 100% true during the Imperial Army. Your loyalty to nation, to emperor, was everything. He didn't die. In fact, he turned back. That makes him, from the outset of our story, a coward and a traitor to his country, and he is treated by those he meets as such. He is cast out, spit upon, and treated with contempt and disdain, and he very clearly internalizes this contempt and disdain and believes it to be accurate. He believes himself a fool and a failure who walked away from his duty because of his own fear. Over the course of the film, as he meets other people, some of them shame him for his past, and some embrace him. Some pull him in, and despite his reluctance and his disbelief, they tell him that his survival was the important thing. That by making it out of this situation alive, he has gained a new duty, a duty to live on, a duty to not fall in, to not take what is portrayed as the easy route of ending, but instead to suffer forward, to try to work to help and save those he cares about. Japanese heroes, by and large, heroes by and large, are a self-sacrificing archetype. It's maybe the most heroic thing that can be done. Self-sacrifice. Giving of yourself to save another, or to save many. How many American or Japanese horror films, not horror films, films, have some kind of grand self-sacrifice of the main character to save the whole world? A lot. And our film cues that right up for us. He's the only one who can do it, who can fly a plane directly into Godzilla's mouth and explode it. He's ready for the mission, and he's ready to die to save everyone he knows. But they don't want him to. He's too valuable. His partner, a woman who he's become very close with, begs him not to. And his friend/enemy, a mechanic, who was one of the first to spit on him for having failed in his duty, arms his plane with an ejection seat. And that's the grand table flip of Godzilla Minus One. Is that this whole time, during this whole war, the Empire has been putting its young men in exploding coffins and launching them at the enemy. And they could have just put ejection seats in those planes. It's the distinct lack of care for life, the view that these young men are expendable, and that their deaths will be heroic, deserved, necessary, important. The movie says all of that is garbage. We don't need to be a nation that sacrifices its youth. We can be a nation that accomplishes the task and walks away back to our families safe. I found that turn in the film striking and beautiful. Because 70 years later, with hundreds of pieces of media that have come out in the interim following the same storyline, sacrifice yourself for something worthwhile. It doesn't matter if you live on. Your message, your actions, they will. It flies in the face of all of that. And it says, no. The most important thing is that you return alive. And if you can do that and finish the mission, that would be really great. It says that this is a nation built on the lives, not the deaths, of its youth. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. So, if I've spoiled it all for you, I'm sorry. I'd love to know if you have different thoughts on the movie, or particular things that jump out at you. But I really liked Godzilla Minus One, and I think you'll like it too if you go and see it. So I recommend that you go and do so. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later. Peace.